Okay. Chief, so you got a new import signing. Can you tell us a little bit about how the deal came about? I know you'd spent a bit of time in Japan in the off season. Was that related to this in any way?
Yeah, no coincidence. I was fortunate enough to meet Kazuki's agent while I was visiting FC Tokyo. Made the connection there, and just it's been ongoing dialogue now for about almost a month. I didn't think Kazuki was an option at the start, and then as we progressed talks and we found out that we both probably wanted the same thing, then it was easy just to get him signed and get him here.
And what sort of level is the J League or the second tier J League compared to the A League? Because we know that he's played international football for Japan, he's played in the Bundesliga, he's won the Asian Champions League. But in terms of recently, what sort of level is he coming from?
I think J2 is a very competitive league. The one thing that I noticed while I was in Japan, I went and watched a lot of university games. I watched Empress Cup, which was between a J4 and a J1 team, and I watched a couple of J2 teams. I think the level's fantastic, especially J2. I think there's a host of players that could comfortably play in the A-League. From a technical point, I think the Japanese players are probably the best players in Asia. You'll see with you can go to any player in the J1, J2, and J3, and that they play quite a number of positions, which also means that their touch, their intelligence allows them to play, in a right across, which kind of suits what I'm trying to do from a coaching point. But yeah, it's a very good level.
So where this first originated in terms of how it was reported in Japan, the same reporter mentioned another player that could be coming to Wellington. Is this likely to be the last Japanese player, or yeah, is there another one coming?
There is another player coming, but I just can't confirm what nationality or where he's coming from.
No, fair enough.
Hmm. Good try.
I'll jump in. Tell us about what kind of player he is, Chief. In the press release, it talks about him being able to play 3 or 4 different positions. Where does he best fit into your system?
Because we're going to evolve what we did from last year. Primarily, starting point will be from a defensive midfield position, but you'll see that he'll be a lot of the times a 10, a winger, could be potentially inverted fullback depending on who we're playing. There's a lot of options and a lot of flexibility in the way he approaches the game, which makes us, I think, a better team overall.
But you've got Rufa, got Elte, Conchi. They can all play in the six as well. So, like, is it more likely he'll as he arrives and fits in that he'll be further forward? He'll be an 8 or a 10, more likely.
No, not really. I think he will be primarily a defensive midfielder to start with. And then again, without going into how we're going to play this year, we're also going to try different things, and all those players will find themselves across the park in with different roles. But again, until you see it, I really can't. I don't really want to elaborate on it too much. But you know, with all the signings that I'm making now, the at the forefront of my thinking is that a lot of the players can play in different positions, and that's going to allow us to be more fluid in the build-up. And being more fluid in the build-up means that I have players taking more initiative and being a little bit more risk, or taking more risk, but also being comfortable with that risk. So if a player can, for me, can play as a 6, 8, 10 winger and a 9, it puts them ahead of most players.
So, without wanting to elaborate too much, will the Phoenix of the upcoming season look quite different to the Phoenix of last season?
They'll have to because we've got, 5, 6 new players. It'll be a different dynamic. We'll be more on the front foot. We're going to be, I think we can, the good thing that we built from last year, was we built a really good foundation. I think not only from a internal cultural aspect, but I think, from a tactical point, we built a really good foundation. And I think this year we want to evolve. We want to be braver with the ball. We want to control games not only from our defensive point, but also from an attacking point. So there's going to be more focus on keeping the ball for larger parts of the game. I'm kind of hoping that we can push the press a little bit higher up the park. But these things take time. They don't happen. And also the recruitment needs to focus towards bringing players like that. And also, I like the idea of, having, again, this idea of fluid build up. It's very important that we bring players that are confident to have the ball all the time.
And see from the socials around the club that your new keeper, Josh Oluwayemi, has arrived. He wasn't, a foot shorter when he got off the plane or anything like that. He came as advertised, and how's he fitted in?
No, he's been great. I had a chat to him after training today to see if he'd settled in. He's going to fit in the group great. I had a chance to speak to him when we initially recruited him. Goalkeeper coach had a good chance to assess him as well. He fits in stylistically to what we're trying to do. And more importantly, he's a good person. So for us, we can work with anyone that wants to be here and add to the group. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Cool. And just one last one I'll throw back to Phil after this is you mentioned one more player to come. So yeah, you've got 4 imports now, haven't you? Ball, Wotton, Nagasawa, and Oluwayemi. So there's one more import to come.
Yeah, one more attacker.
Has it been a deliberate ploy in any way to be shorter, or are you worried that you've lost a lot of height in your team?
Can I ask you what coach in their right mind is planning to have a short team, Rolls? I don't think there's anyone
I
that
just look at
plans
the
like that. I think it's just it happens to be a coincidence that most of the players that I'm recruiting are technically grounded, are not as tall as what or the average height. It's not a ploy that I'm doing deliberately. It's just I happen to focus just on quality. And for me, a big part of any recruitment phase is making sure that we have smart technical players. And their height for me doesn't even factor in. If you see one of the best teams that played in recent European history would have been Napoli about 3-4 years ago, and they were littered not with the biggest team. They had a lot of small technical players.
I'm not tall myself, so
Okay.
don't worry.
Yeah.
And how's pre-season looking? Because ever since you've been knocked out of the Australia Cup, I guess the consequence of that is a lack of competitive cup games. So how have you been able to fill that so far, and what's your plan ahead of round 1?
Look, it's been very disjointed. I spoke about this in our lead up to the South Melbourne game. We essentially had almost like just one day to prepare for that with, the mix of the Olympic squad and the young boys in the academy and so on. So it's not an excuse, but just not ideal preparation. I actually felt the young boys actually, did quite well in that game. But since we've been back, I've been more about making sure that the senior players, especially in the international space, have a breather and get their body right. Also, I haven't been in a rush to get these imports, to come in yet because we've had a lot of niggling injuries and so on, and because the OFC Nations Cup and the Olympics kind of chewed into the boys' time off. I was very mindful of giving everyone enough rest to come back rejuvenated. So we're at that stage now where everyone's starting to filter in. Pretty much, now Josh is in. We've signed Kazuki. He'll be in at the end of next week with our other import as well. And then once they're all in, we're going to be firing for probably a 6-week cycle going into the first game of the season. And we've got a couple of lead-up games, friendlies, littered through September and just before that international break. So we've the advantage of this pre-season has been that because everything's been so scattered, we can have like a normal 6-week pre-season, which is a normal event, as opposed to last year, which was 3 months, which was it was like more mentally draining than it was physically. So that's been the big advantage. The only disadvantage we had is that just we weren't able to really focus on the Australia Cup like we wanted. But again, pre-season for me is more about setting your philosophy and your principles and so on. And then once you get into the season, it's about fixing or maintaining what you're doing well.
So once you sign this other import attacker, how many other spots do you believe you still have to fill in your squad? And are they likely to be any more senior signings to come after that, or is this now an opportunity to look at more of your academy guys?
Look, I think we're in terms of scholarship status going into contract status players, we'll probably promote one or two to fill those spots because I'm quietly confident those players are ready for that next jump. Um, in terms of the imports, we're pretty much done. I'm quietly confident that the remaining of the squad's going to do a fantastic job, so I'm not really looking to bring anyone else in at the moment. For me, once we get our last import, it's pretty much, all guns blazing, and then we'll reassess as the season goes on. But for me, I stick to what we started out last year is, giving opportunities to these young guys to come in and show us what they can do with the right mix of senior players. And again, it's just going to be more about how they gel in these preseason games and can we get them playing the style that we want and evolve as well. So I'm actually looking forward to it. I think it's exciting. I want to build on what we did last year, and I don't want to be the same team. I want to be, a little bit more on the front foot, a little bit more assertive and give the fans something to be excited about.
Yeah, cool. And in terms of pre-season, because you've obviously got Auckland up north who you could play, but is there a deliberate ploy to wait until the season actually starts before you play those guys? Because I guess it would be an easy pre-season game.
I think we toyed with the idea of potentially playing them. It was just it was more of a logistics issue about matching schedules. And they've got, or I think they've had already a bunch of games in Oz. Had some local games. It's just a matter of like timing. Our squad wasn't ready to play, and they were in Oz. So yeah, we just basically parked it for next season.
No, all good. Cool. Thanks, Chief.
No problem.
Just one more from me, Chief, if that's okay. Just around defenders. So Payne, Sutton, Wootton, Kelly, Hield, Hughes, Sheridan. Is that you okay that you're not light there?
Don't see what's wrong with that. I think it's pretty good. I think last year we were probably lighter at the back, to be fair, and turned out well, for the back four. There's a couple of good boys in the academy that are coming through. I think the one thing that the Australia Cup allowed us to do was assess where the level of those players are. And, I thought Isaac Hughes did exceptionally well. I think Lucas, if he can build on last year as well, they're contenders to start. And then, you've got Sutz still there, Payne still there, and then you've got some of the young boys, Jaden Smith and Dylan Gardner, centre backs that are coming through the academy, Schwen as well, right back, and you got Shez who can play across the back line as well. So, I don't. I'll never waste a spot. I never waste a spot knowing that, if I've got players here that can, do a job, I'd rather go with them,
Cool. So Lucas could play centre back?
Play centre back, left back, he can play as a six, can play many spots, Piney.
Love it.
Sounds like everyone's going to play six, though, Chief.
Everyone, I might play with 6 sixes this year, mate. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Love it.